Hi, I'm Ajaire Parello, a Shannon Fabrics Cuddle Ambassador here in the Cuddle Studio today. We're going to be talking about all things Quilting Cuddle. Let's start with what is Quilting Cuddle. It's a 1.5 millimeter minky, which is our lowest pile minky. The next one up is the C3, and that's 3 millimeters, so it's half as high as the 3 millimeter C3 minky. When you first hear that, you might think that it's not going to feel as super soft and luscious as the other cuddles are, but you'd be shocked at just how soft and lovely that Quilting Cuddle is. It's going to make for the most scrumptious quilt tops that you've seen. What I have here is a mixture of some C3, which is that 3 millimeter pile, and the new Quilting Cuddle. And you can see when you first look at it, there's not a ton of difference in just how it looks, but when you get a little bit closer, you can see this white is the C3. And you can see there's a little bit more of a length here when you're looking toward the Quilting Cuddle. There's a little bit more of a length. So it's a good comparison there to see just the difference there. Now C3 does work on the front of quilts. It's just a little bit fussier sometimes when you're wanting to sew with it. So you might need to pin a little bit more than you do with this new Quilting Cuddle. Over the years, we've heard from quilters that they may not want to use C3 on the front of quilts. It stretches a little bit more. It can be a little bit harder to work with. So Shannon Fabrics did a great job of coming up with a product that has very little stretch. It's still a knitted fabric, so the back is still knitted, doesn't fray on the edges, all the same things that we have with our other Cuddle products. But it makes it so much easier to use on the front of a quilt because you get that precision piecing. It has just enough stretch to sort of help you out with the precision. So if you're not quite making that seam where you want it to be, you have just enough that you can fudge it. But with other cottons, you're not going to have that ability. It's a much stiffer. So this is not as stretchy as the C3, but a little more stretchy than cotton. So it does have a little more forgiveness there. Something else the quilters had asked for is our bolts to be shorter. Right now our C3 bolts are about 60 inches wide, and that can make it tricky for quilt shops to store Cuddle on their shelves because most of the shelves are made for the quilting cottons that are at 45 inches. Well, our Quilting Cuddle comes in 45-inch width, so it's the exact same as the cottons will be on the shelf, all the same heights. It also means that all of your existing quilting patterns can be used with a Quilting Cuddle without having to do any kind of estimates for how much fabric you're going to need. You can follow the exact same fabric requirements on all your traditional quilting patterns. That's really exciting because we used to have to do some math to figure out exactly how much fabric am I going to need with that 60-inch width compared to the 45-inch width. We're also able to use AccuQuilt with Quilting Cuddle. Now you can use an AccuQuilt die with our C3s, but with Quilting Cuddle, we've found that you can do 2 layers, which just means faster cutting, right? So you're going to put the 2 layers face to face, so right sides together, and you can put them through the AccuQuilt, cutting through the backing. And that works out great, so it's exciting to be able to think of using AccuQuilt with Quilting Cuddle. We've also been asked about batting. Do you need to use batting with the Quilting Cuddle? We often say that with our Luxe Throws and with some C3 blankets that you don't have to have batting. So when you're actually quilting on it, the question is, do you need batting? And the answer is you don't have to. It really depends on the look you're looking for. So this quilt in front of me does have a low batting in there. And you can see there's some definition here with the Quilting Cuddle from the quilting itself that looks really nice, a little bit puffed up. When I bring this one up, this quilt here does not have any batting in it. It has Luxe on the back and then has the Quilting Cuddle on the front. Look at that gorgeous design. And you can still see the design here. You can still see the quilting design, but it's not quite as puffed as you see these ones are. So it's really the look you're going for. This would be very comfortable and cozy to have on the couch with you. This one here, I will say, is just a little bit softer and plusher. So it's really what you're looking for. Of course, you're going to want to follow the manufacturer's instructions for how far apart you space your quilting, depending on what product you're using. One of the products we love here is the Quilter's Dream Poly. We recommend using this Quilter's Dream Poly with all of our Cuddle products if you're going to be using batting. It's a poly, it's relatively thin, so it will give you that little bit of definition you're looking for, but not make it even heavier or bulkier. The poly is great because this is a polyester fabric. So when you've got the polyester Cuddle and the poly batting, they're not going to be fighting against each other and one's trying to shrink and the other one's not. So it really helps when you have the right product for your project. Some of the different uses we have for Quilting Cuddle versus C3 versus our Cloud Cuddle are, we love the Quilting Cuddle for quilt tops, as I've said, piecing, anything kind of fussy, you're going to want to use the Quilting Cuddle. We love it for bag making. So look at this. This is a gorgeous bag made by one of our other Cuddle ambassadors. Embroidery looks fantastic on the Quilting Cuddle. And with the embroidery, because this is such a low pile, we're finding you don't really need to do a knockdown stitch with some designs. So you're going to want to test it out yourself, but I mean, just look how gorgeous the embroidery looks on this bag. It's very, very luxe looking, and it's all made with the Quilting Cuddle. Quilting Cuddle is also great for piecing. I mean, just look at this little pieced coat. It was pieced first and quilted and then turned into a coat. So it works great for apparel as well. It's lightweight and not as hefty as some of the luxes that we have, and even lighter than C3. So it works great for things like layouts and things like that. We also love it in stuffed animals. So we make stuffies with our Luxe Cuddle, we make stuffies with Cuddle 3, but with Quilting Cuddle, it's that lower pile almost gives it that beanie look. It's just a little bit different, and they're still so sweet and cute, and you can do things that might not show up with other stuffies, with the Cuddle 3 or the Luxe. You can do more definition in the face. You could do some embroidery on it to kind of tie things in a little bit. It's really great with embroidery, say some stuffies you have like an ear that you can embroider on. It works great for that. I also mentioned foundation paper piecing earlier. So this is a foundation paper pattern piece, and look at the crisp edges we have there. This was done without any kind of stabilizer. The Quilting Cuddle worked awesome being able to have those crisp points that you might not get if you were using the C3. You could get them, but you're going to have a lot more pinning to do. So that Quilting Cuddle makes foundation paper piecing possible for the fronts of your quilts and pillows, which is very exciting. And also serging. Serging with Quilting Cuddle is fantastic. This whole pillow was done on the serger, and it makes it so that you can have those nicely finished seams on the inside, and it just goes through a serger like a breeze. This even used a serging foot that does some gathering, and you can see it turned out great. So it's a great option for serging as well. Some of the times that I might use C3 over the Quilting Cuddle are for the backs of quilts. This one here was backed and bound with C3. And you can see it does puff up a little bit more, has just a little more softness to it. And we always have loved C3 on the backs of quilts. So that hasn't changed. We're not totally replacing C3 with Quilting Cuddle. There are some really, really great applications for this product. And again, another one is the binding. We love how those edges look with that 3mm pile hanging over the edge there. It's just really, really nice. And against the Quilting Cuddle on the front, it makes the whole thing just so soft. We'd also use C3 for large piecing. Let's say you've got a front of a quilt that you want to do, and they're really big half square triangles. That's lovely in C3. There might not be a reason to switch over to Quilting Cuddle for that unless you're thinking about things like a traditional quilting pattern where you want to get your measurements correct. We also love C3 for the width. We talked earlier about how the new Quilting Cuddle is 45-inch width, which is great for quilting, but it is nice to have that extra wide 60 inches on the regular C3. That's great for backing. You can back baby quilts with it without seaming. We have the C390, which is the 90-inch width, and that's perfect for things like cuddle sheets, and that just brings softness right to your bed. And we are making an even wider product for C3 that's coming soon, which you're going to be really excited about. So there's no reason to get rid of C3 or replace it entirely. We still love our C3. One of our other low pile minkies is Cloud Cuddle. And that one's a little bit different. That one has two sides to it. So the top is 3mm, just like our C3, but the back is 4mm. So it's super soft on both sides. This makes it great for simple baby blankets. You just need to bind the edge or maybe add a ruffle to the edge and you've already got your own baby blanket without even having to combine two pieces. It's great for apparel. It's so soft to wear and makes fantastic robes. This is just a little kid's robe here. And you can see just how soft it is from both sides. It's been edged with some Luxe Cuddle just for some extra details there. But this Cloud Cuddle works great for apparel. Our Quilting Cuddle is a polyester fabric just like our other cuddles, so you don't have to worry about shrinking. You're still going to use polyester thread, polyester batting, so everything sort of matches up and not one thing shrinking and the other's not. We've been asked if it's going to shrink the same as a cottonwood since we're using it for the front of quilts. But the good news is it's not. It's not going to shrink up on you. You don't have to worry about pre-washing it when you're doing it for a quilt top. So what are the differences between Quilting Cuddle, Cuddle 3, Cloud Cuddle, and flannel? Quilting Cuddle is our 1.5mm product, Shannon Fabrics here, and you can see it's really nice. It's low pile, but it's still super soft. It does have a right way and a wrong way, quote unquote, for which way the nap is going. You can see that there. This is our C3, which is our 3mm cuddle, and you can see these are the same color, and you can see it does have sort of that nap. You can see a little bit here what the difference is. This one is half as high of a pile as this one here. So the Quilting Cuddle is 1.5 and the C3 is 3mm. These fabrics can be treated very similarly. Everything's going to be laundered the same way. We always say you wash in cold cycle with no fabric softener at all and just no heat dryer to fluff. Same thing. We also have our Cloud Cuddle. Now Cloud Cuddle is our double-sided product. You don't have to line this at all. It's a lovely, lovely fabric on the other side. And this is comparing it to the Quilting Cuddle here. So you can see this has 3mm pile on the outside and 4mm pile on the inside. You can see it is quite a bit thicker than the Quilting Cuddle. And then this here, this is a piece of flannel. So it's just your standard flannel, and lots of people use flannel in quilts. I feel like this Quilting Cuddle is going to sort of be replacing where you'd use flannel in your quilts. I think it's just so soft and nice. And we like flannel. There's nothing wrong with flannel, but I mean, there's just no comparison when you're comparing the softness of the new Quilting Cuddle and a piece of flannel. There's just no comparison there. But you can see that pile on the edge there, the difference between flannel and Quilting Cuddle. Now, flannel will shrink. You will have trouble with flannel, so you always want to pre-wash that unless you want your quilt to shrink up. Quilting Cuddle will not. There is no stretch really to flannel. You can see it doesn't really stretch. Quilting Cuddle has a slight stretch to it. You can see there that it stretches a little bit. This is our C3 Cuddle, and you can see it has a lot more stretch. You can kind of see that from up there. That's that stretch. This is the Quilting Cuddle. So it has some, you see that going over, but then this one, I mean, it just curls over quite a bit. So you see there's difference in stretch there. And then the Cloud Cuddle has quite a bit of stretch too. Just, it doesn't really curl over the same way the C3 does. When we're talking about cuddle, we always want to talk about cutting, right? And traditionally, we will cut from the back with things like C3 and Luxe. We'll mark and then cut from there. And with Quilting Cuddle, I do like to cut from the back. I think this knitted backing is really nice to mark on. We are able to mark with some finer points than we were with some of the luxes. It doesn't sink in as much. So normally we'll say to use like a nice big felt tip marker, but I find the fine point ones work great too. I've also had great success with the chalk pens. That one's a little bit faint on this color, but it works great on the darker colors. Sometimes a piece of like Taylor's chalk, that yellow is showing up a little bit better. These are things that might not work super well on the Luxe Cuddles, but it seems to work great on the Quilting Cuddles. Same with your water erasable or air erasable markers. They look really nice on these as well. So one of the nice things about Quilting Cuddle is that you can cut from the top. I still prefer to cut from the back, just I think I'm used to being able to mark it so nicely, but I've seen people cutting from the front and it really doesn't make that much of a difference. So we can still cut from the front. You will get some nap that comes off, but it's not tons, and it's an easy cleanup the same way we would clean up with C3 or Luxe. You have your vacuum, you can simply do a shake, you can put it in a no heat dryer, and all of that cuddle dust will come off and put into your lint trap, so it's easy to take care of. With C3, we cut from the back, and with a rotary cutter, you can see it will take all that pile right off. So you're not going to want to, with C3, cut with a rotary cutter if you're doing something like a binding, because you won't have the nap hanging over, which you want for the binding. But with Quilting Cuddle, I've had no problems cutting with the rotary cutter because that pile is just so short to begin with that it's negligible. So if you're more comfortable with cutting with a rotary cutter than with, say, the SAC1 knife we often talk about cutting with, or a micro serrated scissor, which is another way we cut C3 and Luxe, you're totally okay with using the rotary cutter for cutting with Quilting Cuddle. And that's everything you need to know about Quilting Cuddle from Shannon Fabrics. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love you to check out our other videos over on the Cuddle Studio.